everybody, and welcome to Discussions in IP. My name is Athlin Nesty, and I'm the Registrar of the Companies and Intellectual Property Office. Today we celebrate World Intellectual Property Day. Its theme, Women and IP, Accelerating Innovation and Creativity. With me today, in celebration of World IP Day, are three phenomenal women. Mrs. Jessica Ricketts-Esprit, mother, wife, entrepreneur, and my friend. And along with her is Mrs. Mikkel Henderson Del Sol, world-renowned artist, singer, songwriter, producer, and farmer. And along with us is Miss Luana Laura, who is the founder, owner, and CEO of Finance Focus Inc. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having me.
And today we will be discussing IP and how these wonderful women use IP to advance their business and profession. So, ladies, Miss, should I say Mrs. Esprit or?
Yes, you can say
Mrs. Esprit or Jessica or?
Jessica is fine. Yeah.
Jessica, tell me, you registered a mark in our office, and I know we have had discussions and you plan to register further marks. Why is it that you feel that it's important to register your mark?
Well, Athlin, in everything I do, I try to do it to the best of my ability. I like to put forward good quality, and both of these marks, the one that's already registered and the one that I intend to register, are to do with the medical field.
Okay.
And this is a service field. It's very important. It's during COVID, what was it? The front line.
Yes.
Exactly. And when you are, you're putting your all into something, you're developing a reputation, you're building your clientele and all of that, you want to protect that.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many reasons and ways it can expand, which I'm sure we'll touch on as we go further into this conversation.
Okay. And you will hear me speak of a mark, and we're referring to a trademark, which is a form of intellectual property. And in this case, you will hear the beautiful ladies speak of their mark, and this is their logo, which they registered. And you do so in order to distinguish your logo from that of your competitors, and that it can be identifiable and protected. So, Luana, you too registered your logo of your company, Finance Focus. Could you tell us why you chose to do so?
There's a whole story there.
And we're all for it.
Finance Focus was built on the brand behind financial literacy content.
Mm-hmm.
And it's well known for sharing free financial tips on budgeting, retirement, entrepreneurship, you name it.
Yes.
My motivation to protect my brand was as a result of losing it.
Oh, okay.
Building the brand over the period of time, you find it's becoming popular, it's getting rich regionally, locally, internationally. And as a result of that, it was exposed to misuse, abuse, and to one point almost even stolen. I remember wanting to put my brand out there so badly that I partnered with somebody, and within a matter of months, that person basically used my content, started using my colors. They would share financial tips and putting that I would have endorsed that information.
Wow.
So that in itself made me realize that after spending so many years of trying to build a reputation, confidence in my brand, I could almost lose it.
Yes.
And that happened locally.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my motivation, one, to protect the brand locally.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because of the internet, things are getting popular, it was also exposed to theft on the international market.
Wow.
Because as a result of that, I started seeing similar pages, content popping up all over the internet with my name, with my colors,
Yes.
repurposing my logo, just with little tweaks, and I realized, okay, this is something serious. Even on YouTube, there were similar YouTube pages being created just because, we're in a small country and people think that this is maybe not something serious, it's a side hustle. But because I had a plan for my brand, I wanted to protect it. You can imagine after 5 years of putting so much energy into building something, to have somebody just copy that.
Of course.
So that in itself was my motivation to trademark Finance Focus.
Okay, and that in itself is very important because although your protection spans only within the jurisdiction of Dominica, it affords you that right within your jurisdiction to show, hey, this is my brand, I own it, and so I can have rights which I can enforce to protect such brand. And I can also restrict similar brands which would cause confusion in the market so that your product gains all the highlight from the consumers that it deserves. And I remember in your application as well that you even protected your colors and everything.
Yes.
So
The whole works.
Yes. So that in itself is important. I know the average consumer and the listening public would want to know more about this, but just to say that in particular brands such as Luana's, although that her logo is protected, she has words within her brand such as finance, and she's protecting financial affairs under her services. She would not have gotten the exclusive right to have that word finance. She would have to disclaim that, but the brand in its totality is her brand. So when you see that, just know you see Miss Laura.
That's correct.
Great. Okay, and could you all tell us, or now that we've gotten down to the IP aspect of it, could you tell us about your brand and tell the public about your services that you offer, because your brand is protected under particular services. So just explain about your company and your business and what is it you do.
Okay, well, so right now I am just getting ready to launch Triage Health Limited, which a few of you may have seen or heard buzzing around so far. It will be located on the corner of Great George Street and Hillsborough Street. That's basically right between the Second Jollies and Republic Bank.
Okay.
And it is going to be a diagnostic center. So you can come there for all of your, we will add services in progression, so over time, but you can definitely keep us in mind for when you have any testing, you're requested to do any testing in investigation into your health status, whether it is just your general health or you're actually investigating some symptoms in making a diagnosis or keeping up to date with your management of a current diagnosis.
Okay.
And our slogan is prioritizing health, prioritizing access, prioritizing you.
Nice.
And you see, I have repeated the word prioritizing because that is our main focus, is to make sure that we increase and we focus on locals and any visitors, or foreigners in the country having access, affordable access to health, where you are the center of the product or the service, okay? And so this is why, I'm looking into into IP to protect our brand in terms of making sure that the public, the patients are the center of our service and elevating the level of care and so into the public.
Nice. And with your brand, I'm sure that you will place also your mark in the economy.
Yes.
That this is what is associated to my brand. And health is important, and it's a growing economic base of every country. After COVID, you realize that it's not even the new, but the wealth now is health.
Exactly.
And you need health.
Yes.
We need to be healthy. We need to keep ourselves healthy. So as you grow your brand, I'm sure you will encounter other IP aspects as well, because even in pharmaceuticals, sometimes we have to ensure that we have the right in which to sell certain pharmaceutical products and pharmaceutical and medicine and these things, and sometimes you may have to encounter getting licenses because these are also protected brands of other brand owners. These are their products that they have to protect as well, and you may have to very well encounter getting a license. So Luana, yes, Finance Focus is protected, we know it, and we know the importance that you have placed on it. So could you please just tell us exactly what exactly does Finance Focus do?
Finance Focus is a financial literacy company which also provides business and accounting support to micro and small businesses. We also cater to large businesses as well, but our niche are really micro and small businesses because we understand the importance that they need the support to grow to large businesses. And I'm happy Jessica is here today because I also partnered with Jessica to curate a business plan for Triage Health.
Nice.
Yes.
So this is one of all the services that we also provide for businesses and entrepreneurs who need that extra push or that support to guide them along their way through entrepreneurship. And even as an entrepreneur, you also need to know how to manage your money.
Yes.
And that is where the financial literacy aspect comes in. We try to get people to a higher financial altitude, which is what we trademark through different coaching mechanisms, planning their finances over a period of time so that they can grow holistically through their finances and their personal lives and their businesses.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you, as a follow-up of that, in your preferring advice to your clients, have you ever came across, let's say, any aspect where you realized, hey, this is a good idea, a new idea, I've never heard of that, and ever led them to the discussion of intellectual property?
Definitely, part of the services that we provide is financial coaching,
Okay.
not financial advice.
Okay.
So an individual with a business idea can come to us for business coaching. I also teach entrepreneurship and new venture creation at the University of the West Indies.
Nice.
So I'm privy to a lot of business ideas before they hit the market.
Yes.
And we understand the importance of protecting our ideas
Mhm.
before social media picks it up.
Yes.
And that is one of the recommendations I make to these individuals. You have something, you see it's sustainable, you see that it can take off and progress over time. So your main focus is protecting your brand.
Yes.
So it's important you have a business name that you know is so unique.
Mhm.
You haven't started as yet, but it's recommended to at least just pay that $19 to secure your business name, first of all.
Yeah.
And one might argue that trademarking may be expensive.
Mhm.
But in my opinion, if this is something that you see that is valuable to you, you can invest in your business.
Yes.
I spent $700 to trademark. In Dominica, I find that very reasonable compared to the different countries in the region.
Yes.
So if you know you have a sustainable business idea, you've been doing it as a side hustle for a period of time. Over the next 3 years, you see it's picking up. It's carrying, you're getting the reach, you're getting the customers, and you feel that it is something that can take you 10, 15, 20 years down the line. Invest in protecting your brand.
I agree with you, and I know you stated that it's about 700. It may be more based on the classes, and that, well, classes is another discussion that we would have based on the number of classes that you protect with associated to your mark. But remember, you get your protection for 10 years.
Yes.
So you have this decade of protection for your brand that you can use and always say, hey, this is mine. So, and you can always place your mark in the economy with that, so that it's important when people see your brand, they see you. And that's what it does. So I'm happy that you spoke of that, and I'm happy that you continue to motivate those that you encounter to protect their brand. So it's a very good discussion, and I appreciate exactly what you were saying. But are there any challenges that you have encountered since you've registered, or basically in business?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm
I think she's coming. Yes, I think she's talking to you guys. I'm learning a lot here. Challenges, even with the registration process.
Yeah.
Just generally in business?
Or with the registration process, with business, anything.
Well, I mean, trying to conduct, I'll just be straight, okay? Trying to conduct business in Dominica certainly comes with its challenges. But if you speak to anyone who has gone down that path, something they will say, and something I've heard them say, is that it is one of the factors that will, separate those who really have the tenacity, those who really want what they say they want, and then those who, maybe it was a fad, yes, it would have been nice to do this, but you have to have that grit and that staying power. You have to really love and want what it is you're trying to achieve in Dominica to get through with it because you have to push sometimes. Like, you know.
I know. We have to push. And before we push even further, we will take a break at this moment and we'll be right back. Okay, and welcome back. And ladies, this discussion is very interesting. I must say, even being the registrar of IP, I'm enjoying this, and I'm sure our listening and viewing public is also enjoying it. So, Miss Laura, could you as well tell us of any challenges that you have had?
It's first important to understand there's a difference between a small business owner and an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. A small business owner will just manage operations, but an entrepreneur is creative, they persevere, they're resilient. And over the past 6 years, we're just celebrating our 6th anniversary of Finance Focus, sharing financial information in Dominica. And believe me, it has not been easy. There are many times that you ask yourself, will they like this content? Will that be something that will be challenged? Mm-hmm. You know, when it comes to money, it's sort of taboo speaking about it. So you have to curate it in such a way that it's palatable. Mm-hmm. Over the years of doing business, because Finance Focus started as a hobby.
Right.
For the first 3 years, it was just free coaching, getting people to understand and appreciate the brand. But when we transitioned into business, it became very important to understand the scope of business, how to actually blend education and business together. And operating in Dominica, while that has its challenges, you as the individual have to be motivated. So the motivation for Finance Focus comes from the passion that I have in sharing information, but also seeing the people that I've worked with getting changes, you know, making progress with their finances, even if it's $100 they save. Yes. Because they couldn't save before. Yes. It is something that continues to motivate me. Another set of challenges that I would have faced is the access to different services. Mm-hmm. You know, as a micro business, there are certain services that you would require. And while I would want to reach out locally for these services, the quality of it is not sufficient so that I want to attach to my brand. So it causes me now to reach to the external market. Okay. So that is something that I want to see as micro and small businesses in Dominica, mm-hmm. to improve the quality of service and products that we have here locally, so yes. all of us can benefit.
Great. I think that's a good recommendation, and I think we should always highlight that to the businesses that we encounter these setbacks or things that are really not what we're looking for. So as we move forward and as our brands grow, I think the bigger brands and bigger companies should always, you know, lend that hand to the younger and new entrepreneurs. I mean, motivation is key because it can be hard in the business world, but keep going, because I must say that every time I hear the word finance focus or something, I think of you. So marketing goes hand in hand with your brand, but as you did, protect it. Definitely. And speaking about thinking, as soon as I hear something, I am now going to go to our world-renowned artist, songwriter, producer, beautiful woman, entrepreneur, wife, mother, Miss Mikel Henderson Del Sol. And Mikel, yes, we're just going to start with you right now as we move into the realm of copyright and protection and advancing your music and protecting your music in Dominica. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us how, as an artist, or have you protected your work?
Very early on in my career, I understood from having listened to and collaborated with some artists in the neighboring islands, Guadeloupe and Martinique, that the real money or the real business end of music was in protected work.
Yes.
And so I was pretty much steered toward it by the experiences of other people.
Yes.
And I was also oku of the experiences of local musicians who had not protected their work, and I knew from very early on I did not want that to happen to me. So I basically sought out the information, did my own research, and I gleaned the information from those artists from Dominica who had themselves registered their works and gotten protection for their works, and so I followed their path.
Yes.
And which led me to SACEM,
Okay.
which is the Société pour Auteurs Composers of Music. It's a French CMO.
Yes.
By CMO, I mean Collective Management Organization, for those
Right.
who don't understand.
Yes.
And I was welcomed there when I
Nice.
came, and they saw I had a repertoire of music, and they encouraged me to sign up, and I did. And from that moment, that was very early on in my career. So everything I've ever written is registered
Okay.
with a CMO. And what that CMO does for me is basically canvas the world, because I can't do that
Yes,
individually
you
by
can't.
myself.
Exactly.
So they will go out and they will apply that protection of my work. They will collect licenses and from the people who do pay licenses, and then remit a royalty to me for the works that I have registered.
Nice, and that's very important because we have to understand that it's not only our live performances that artists will obtain money from, but sometimes we have to go into obtaining our masters, and also if we even produce and write where a lot of the copyright comes from, we have to ensure that we protect these things, and CMOs are the key organizations in which to protect those rights for you. So I know that you have written this song for CARICOM.
Yes. That's interesting, yes.
Yes. I know some insight of it, but could you tell our listening and viewing public your experience with being the owner of
Right.
that song for CARICOM, because you are the owner.
Right, correct. So I'm the author, composer of the song. Other people have arrangement rights on the song as well. So they own some right in the arrangement, but the ownership of the actual song itself is 100% me,
Yes.
right? And the way I get this used or I'm able to distribute it or allow it to be used is by license. That
Yes.
is how you use. So I've actually was approached by a television company who was doing a documentary, and they asked me to use the song. And so they would obviously, this is in the US, it's DirecTV, so they do everything by the book.
Yes.
And so they requested, where do we get the information from? Who's your CMO?
Yes.
So I explained to them that it is registered. They were using more than one of my songs, so they were using other songs, and most of my songs were registered with SACEM. So they checked with SACEM. Incidentally, I had registered this song with ECHO, which is the Eastern Caribbean Collective Organization for Music Rights, solely because I felt that this was a regional anthem,
Yes.
and it would most likely be aired within the region and not so much further afield. But I always had the intention to continue.
Yes.
And the public should also understand that if even we have our own regional CMO, they have what we call reciprocal agreements that allow them to collect on behalf of everybody, and so they kind of in a way canvass the whole world through their agreements with the other CMOs. So it wasn't. I felt like it was protected enough at the moment, but then the legal department from the television company called back and said, "Well, we found a registration at SACEM for this song," and they gave me a name that I had never heard of before, and I didn't know who this person was. And luckily, I had my ECHO registration, and I had also forwarded an initial document to SACEM within the period of a good shorter period of time than the person who had actually tried to register the song.
Wow.
So that allowed me to correct the mistake. I had my evidence. I had previous registration with another company, and so I was protected that way. But it brought to light how easily some of us who have not taken these steps can be taken advantage of, even with a song as well known as the CARICOM anthem.
Correct.
I mean, it was a big media deal that I wrote this song, and then that I was, I sang at the heads of government meetings and all of that. Yet somebody was able you know,
The audacity.
the audacity to attempt. You
Yes.
know what I mean? And had I not had the previous protections that I had in place, likely would have gotten away with it. And so it's imperative that our
Yes.
artists understand how
Important.
important it is.
And it not only hinges on that particular time, but when our artists reach that stage of not being able to perform these live performances and
Yes.
elsewhere and have that energy, and when we grow older on our rocking chair,
Right.
we still want to be receiving
Yes, because it's
money.
being used. The
Exactly.
thing is with music is that it's exploited. As you can see, there's through TikTok and YouTube, there are songs that you haven't heard in decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're being exploited now, and
Mhm.
the owners of those works are still getting paid for them, because as
Correct.
long as you're using them in a way that generates income for whoever is using them,
Mhm.
then there's a license to be had and there's a royalty to be paid.
Correct.
So it's like I explained earlier, it's a retirement plan, really.
Yes.
To make sure that your work is protected, and it is
Correct.
protected in most jurisdictions. Your work is protected for your lifetime
Mhm.
and some years after.
After.
So
Oh,
50,
yes.
some jurisdictions are 50, some are
54th,
70.
Yes, definitely.
You know, so your children
Mhm.
and your children's children
Yes.
can actually receive
Receive
royalties
correct.
as successors
Yes.
under. You
So
know,
it is an investment
Yeah,
in
it
your
is.
future. And
absolutely.
if you're an artist and a musician, singer, writer, composer, author, these are the steps that you want to take to ensure that this is my profession. And I have to, obviously, we all have to gain from our profession, and we want to leave on a legacy, and a legacy that can be rewarding as well. So, you know, embarking upon these protective measures and enforcing your rights for your CMOs, you know, these are important avenues to understand. And as well, and we are now in a global social media village, which is
yes.
so small. So not only we have to be cognizant of the fact that, listen, we have to protect our own works, but we have to be mindful of the works of others
Correct.
Yeah.
that we use,
And how-
because and how we
Yes.
use it, because we can go in and use as many songs within our songs and find ourselves at a loss in the future because we don't have the authority
Right.
in which to use those. Can you speak about that?
Yes, there's various ways. You see, you can use a song in so many different ways. You can sync it to a video, you can include it in a movie, you can adapt it, for example, you know, use the same melody, change the lyrics, you can sample it, which is
Yes.
done a lot here. People are familiar with sampling. And
Sampling,
all
yes.
these various uses of the work require permission from the owners of the work.
Correct.
And so you have to actually seek permission. It's easier than going to find each and every artist, right? Because you do have publishers, and you have major publishers that have millions of songs in their repertoire. You have CMOs that have the right to offer those licenses as well. So it's important for you to actually do that research before you actually plan to use the
Yes.
music, because there are too many examples of works not cleared. I'll give you one example. If anybody remembers, okay, maybe that's not a good example because the song is kind of a crazy song.
Okay.
But like Ariana Grande, for example,
Yes.
did she used Rodgers and Hammerstein's "My Favorite Things"? So my favorite things. So she's
Yes.
right. Do you know that is she actually pays? I think about 90%. I may be wrong, but I think about 90% of the royalties goes to the original
Yes.
owner,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I think Bruno Mars
Exactly.
too, for Marvin
Many
Gaye
people.
and all these things.
Cisco
Yes.
used one line in his song, one line, "Living La Vida Loca," which is
Yeah.
from Ricky Martin,
Yes.
and basically had to give up all what he made on that
Correct.
song because they used it without
wow.
the permission, without clearing it first.
Exactly.
And so when you do it after, you stand a chance of losing the entire pot,
Correct.
as opposed to negotiating
Before.
before.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I said before, the economy is getting smaller in terms, and when I say this, I mean that close knit.
Yes.
So our region is getting in tune with the EU and with the US, and we have social media which exposes us more.
Yeah.
So we might say, I'm a small fry, you know, but the exposure is also causing us to expand and get even more exposure in other jurisdictions. So we have artists traveling to France, Spain, Germany, everywhere. So people will be looking to enforce their rights. So
Absolutely. Don't be surprised. I think we've like you said, we've lived in Dominica in this little bubble of us. That's exactly it. In this bubble for so long that we feel that the things that we do here don't really have an impact
Yes.
outside of Dominica that much. But with the advent of TikTok and this, you realize that this is changing.
Yes.
You can have an impact on people in Japan. You know, Nasio music is popular in Japan. You know, so that's when the reach is so, it's global. So you cannot limit yourself to just, okay, well, I'm just doing this for the island, and so you know, it's not gonna bother Mariah Carey if I use her song. She might come across your TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. And
somebody might tag her, and then you know.
And then, or she might come across your YouTube, which has
channel,
millions of views, which you're getting paid for, and she would recognize that. That's right. And well, this discussion is very fruitful, and at this stage, we'll just take one last break. Great, welcome back, and we're just going to have an interactive session at this point. I want to throw this out here. Bouillon music. Do y'all think bouillon music, I mean, we're island based on creativity, and we have these infused inspirations from all over, knowing our historical background of our island, but we are unique in and of ourselves, and we are capable of creating things in and of ourselves within our jurisdiction. What is your take on bouillon music? Is it Dominica's?
It's a loaded question.
Yes.
But because music is universal, right? So, but it's uniquely identified as Dominican.
Okay.
Meaning that when you hear it, well, now, more and more, because before that we didn't actually stamp our name on it so much. It was sort of proliferated throughout the world via another very well-known jurisdiction, right, for their music. And so when it first came out, people just associated with that type of music from that area. Yeah. But it was actually, to us, an entire, not just a subgenre, but a genre by itself. And if you recall, a lot of people made a lot of fuss about this and so on.
Yes.
I'm not on one side or the other where that is concerned. But
that's why I said discussion.
I think that there are benefits to it being a subgenre, and there are benefits to it being a genre by itself. Okay. So we should be very proud of the fact that we've actually created not one but two recognizable genres in the world. Bouillon being one of them, Caras being the other.
Oh yes, Caras.
And so Dominica is uniquely placed in that, in the region for that, because most of the people just have one or none at all. So that should be a unique identifying factor for us. I think that is a point of marketing that we have not leveraged enough. I agree. And so, yeah, I think in that sense that belonging exists. Yes. But music is, I don't happen to think that culture is something that should remain sort of in a box. No. Okay. I think that it is meant to be shared. Yes. And I think everybody knows, you will know where it's from, because the people who initiated or who started or created it or who treasure it espouse their ownership so loudly that you would know, right? But not because it cannot be used somewhere. I would hate to think that if people in Japan started playing bouillon, that we would all, be no, we want it to go out there. We want Asa to go to Ibiza, and you know what I mean, in Spain and so on. And so we have to be careful not to put it in a box, and confine it. Too restrictive about it. But at the same time, if we continue to promote it as ours, then the message gets out there that it's ours, And I don't think there's any way to take that from us once we do that. I think there's value in origin, because people, once they can associate that to you, it brings that value back to you always. And if they know that this music is
Dominica, then it brings that economic value back to us. They want to come and see Dominica. They want to hear more about it. It's unique to the world. They would want to explore that history. So as you said, this is a very good recommendation for the country that Bouillon is in itself is a very good economic standing base.
Yeah,
And
it's
tourism
a mark of its
base.
own.
It
It's
is
a
a
mark
mark
of its own. It's a mark of its own. Just
Yeah.
like we immediately, without reservation, associate Jamaica with reggae music.
Yes.
And Trinidad with calypso music, and you know what I
Yes.
mean?
And
It
Jamaica
doesn't mean
has
that-
had its
Right.
issues with reggae and
Yeah,
that mark,
I mean the
so we
same
don't-
thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
But people sing reggae all over the world.
Yes.
But we know for a fact that that's where the origin is, and if we can establish ourselves as the originators of this, then we solidify that fact, then we can take it to the world.
That's right. Next Grammy artist.
Exactly, it's not impossible. It
Right.
can happen.
Well, ladies, this was indeed a wonderful discussion. Discussions in IP, women and IP, and you can see why I chose these three phenomenal women, because they contribute so much to our economy and they contribute so much to IP. And we're happy that you came, and I want to thank you ever so much. And I hope that you continue to place your mark and your fingerprint on Dominica, and for future entrepreneurs or future artists, future farmers, future mothers, future friends. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And I have all confidence that you are going to just exceed beyond the stars.
Thank you for the blessings.
So thank you for joining us on Discussions in IP. Have a wonderful World Intellectual Property Day. And if you need any further information on IP, you can always visit us at the Companies and Intellectual Property Office, located on 8 Fort Lane. That's next to Domlec, Roseau. Or you can give us a call at 266-3189-3359, and we'll be happy to share with you more about IP. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye.